Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 305 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where Samwise the Strong, hero of the age, finds himself in a bit of a pickle.
If only he had a flaming sword and armies flocking to his call, right?
That would be nice.
Yeah, it would be.
Wouldn't it? Yeah, there are times where I'd be really, really happy to have either, let alone both.
I'm Don Marshall, the obscure Lord of the Rings facts guy, and I am here with the $6 million man of the West, Alan Sisto, whose plain hobbit sense may or may not live still unconquered.
Well, if I start ordering you to plant fruit trees in Gorgoroth, I think you'll know, Don, but yeah. Folks, join us as we go back to Sam for the first time in a very long time and the start of a really hard day in the first part of the Tower of Cirith Ungol, the first chapter in Book 6 of The Lord of the Rings.
Have you ever had a really bad day? I guarantee you it's not as bad as the one these hobbits are about to have.
That is a fair point. Well, Frodo's already had himself a pretty hard day.
That's true.
Sam, too, for that matter. I mean, fighting a giant spider, yes, he won, but come on. And now, wow, he is in a rough spot. Like, I've got to get in that building where there are maybe 200 orcs and try to find my one tiny hobbit friend. Good luck.
No big deal. It's fine. All right. Well, no matter how you got here, we are happy that you are here, and you are all welcome here in the common room here at the Prancing Pony Podcast. We are reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with plenty of speculation, what ifs, and bad jokes along the way. Speaking of which, though, before we get into the script, I do want to say, Alan, thank you so much for rolling with the punches. I've changed the opening joke that you've initially
Just about
written.
Every episode.
It's like a John Mulaney, Bill Hader thing. You know, Stefan from SNL. John Mulaney would always change the jokes halfway through. That's why Bill Hader can't keep a straight face in SNL. I am the John Mulaney to your Bill Hader.
You really are. And last season you did it every episode, and you're already doing the same thing. I love it. I just have to figure out how to do it. So
don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. Anyway.
Anyway, indeed. Well, folks, we love deep dives into the lore. We really love discussing our favorite themes in Tolkien and a whole lot more.
But as you can probably tell by the sheer number of sidebars and jokes, we like to keep it light and fun. A couple of friends chatting at a pub, and we're very glad you've joined us.
We are indeed, and I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, where we'll finally spend some time with Sam again, it's actually time to catch up with the rest of the hobbits and everyone else in Meanwhile Elsewhere in Middle-earth.
In the early pages of this chapter, though we won't read it since we're covering it here, we see Sam wondering if the rest of the company are thinking about them. Hint, hint, they are. Tolkien then helps set the reader back onto the right timeline, since we've kind of jumped back in time to join Sam in his search for Frodo by telling us what everybody's up to. We thought we'd expand on that a little bit in this segment by actually going back and looking at the text for these moments.
Yeah. So Tolkien tells us that it's almost noon on March 14th, and then he starts by letting us know that at this very moment that Sam is wondering about his friends, Aragorn is leading the Black Fleet up the Anduin from Pelargir. Now, for this, we're going to go back to the last debate, as Gimli and Legolas have been telling the story in flashback to Merry and Pippin. And here, Gimli is wrapping it up in his own dwarven way. And that is near the end of our tale, for during that evening and night, many ships were made ready and manned, and in the morning the fleet set forth. Long past it now seems, yet it was but the morn of the day ere yesterday, the 6th since we rode from Dunharrow. But still Aragorn was driven by fear that time was too short. It is 40 leagues and 2 from Pelargir to the landings at the Harlawn, he said. Yet to the Harlawn we must come tomorrow, or fail utterly. The oars were now wielded by free men, and manfully they laboured, yet slowly we passed up the great river, for we strove against its stream, and though that is not swift down in the south, we had no help of wind. Heavy would my heart have been, for all our victory at the havens, if Legolas had not laughed suddenly. Up with your beard, Durin's son, he said, for thus it is spoken, oft hope is born when all is forlorn. But what hope he saw from afar he would not tell. When night came, it did but deepen the darkness, and our hearts were hot, for away in the north we saw a red glow under the cloud, and Aragorn said, Minas Tirith is burning. So now you're caught up with Aragorn, Legolas, and, well, whoever the heck that was. I think it was supposed to be Gimli, but it's been a while, folks. Forgive me. I'll get there.
Slipped into some Billy Connolly there towards the end,
bit,
honestly. Yeah. Keeping this going, the narrator also tells us that Merry was riding with Rohirrim down the Stonewain Valley, and here we get back to the Ride of the Rohirrim, where we read, "All went well that day, and no sight or sound had they of the enemy waiting to waylay them. The wild men had put out a screen of wary hunters, so that no orc or roving spy should learn of the movements in the hills. The light was more dim than ever as they drew nearer to the beleaguered city, and the riders passed in long files like dark shadows of men and horses. Each company was guided by a wild woodman, but old Han walked beside the king. The start had been slower than was hoped, for it had taken time for the riders, walking and leading their horses, to find paths over the thickly wooded ridge behind their camp and down into the hidden Stonewain Valley. It was late in the afternoon when the leaders came to wide gray thickets stretching beyond the eastward side of the Amondine and masking a great gap in the line of hills that from Nardal to Dine ran east and west. Through the gap, the forgotten Wain Road long ago had run down, back into the main horseway from the city through Anorion. But now, for many lives of men, trees had had their way with it, and it had vanished, broken and buried under the leaves of uncounted years. But the thickets offered to the riders their last hope of cover before they went into open battle, for beyond them lay the road and the plains of Anduin, while east and southward the slopes were bare and rocky, as the writhen hills gathered themselves together and climbed up, bastion upon bastion, into the great mass and shoulders of Mindolwyn.
And then finally, when Sam is wondering about his friends, the narrator tells us that in Minas Tirith, flames were rising, and Pippin watched the madness growing in the eyes of Denethor. So for details here, we're going to go back to the Siege of Gondor. Far behind the battle, the river had been swiftly bridged, and all day more force and gear of war had poured across. Now at last, in the middle of the night, the assault was loosed. The vanguard passed through the trenches of fire by many devious paths that had been left between them. On they came, reckless of their loss as they approached, still bunched and herded, within the range of bowmen on the wall. But indeed, there were too few now left there to do them great damage, though the light of the fires showed up many a mark for archers of such skill as Gondor once had boasted. Then, perceiving that the valor of the city was already beaten down, the hidden captain put forth his strength. Slowly, the great siege towers built in Osgiliath rolled forward through the dark. Messengers came again to the chamber in the White Tower, and Pippin let them enter, for they were urgent. Denethor turned his head slowly from Faramir's face and looked at them silently. "The first circle of the city is burning, Lord," they said. "What are your commands? You are still the Lord and Steward. Not all will follow Mithrandir. Men are flying from the walls and leaving them unmanned." "Why? Why do the fools fly?" said Denethor. "Better to burn sooner than late, but burn we must. Go back to your bonfire. And I will go now to my pyre. To my pyre! No tomb for Denethor and Faramir. No tomb. No long, slow sleep of death embalmed. We will burn like heathen kings before ever a ship sailed hither from the west. The west has failed. Go back and burn." Man, I never cease to be amazed at the depths of despair that Denethor was in this moment. Just, in the midst of all of these crazy events. I mean, here is Pippin watching this, right? Here is Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli sailing up the Anduin with an army getting ready to attack. All of these things are happening, but in all of these events, their thoughts are with Frodo and Sam. The text tells us they were not forgotten, but they were far beyond aid, and no thought could yet bring any help to Samwise Hamfast's son. Man.
I gotta say, though, and again, I feel like I say this every time, which just goes to show you how amazing this podcast is. Your reading of Denethor, I've listened to many versions of this, and I've heard people read it out loud, including, I think there's some clips of Tolkien reading portions himself. Hearing Denethor as like an old, crotchety, angry man instead of like a old, wise, despairing lord, that hits a little different, doesn't it?
It does. I tried to play him a little bit more of that despairing lord earlier, but by this point, he's lost his mind. right?
Yeah.
And at this point, he's no longer despairing. He has surrendered to that despair. He's fully given up his obligations, his responsibility. And yeah, I mean, basically I just take me, cranky old man, and turn it up by about 20%. And wow, then you get, no long, slow sleep as death embalmed. That's just me in 5 years. So I don't know. I don't, but thank you.
I mean, I wasn't going to say that.
Yes, you were. Just not in the air. You weren't just going to say it in the air.
I was thinking it. There's a difference.
I can hear it from here, my friend.
I've trained you well then. All right, let's go ahead and get into tonight's discussion. Alan, I think it's time for you to start reading the very last book of The Lord of the Rings.
I can't believe it that this is the 6th year we've been in The Lord of the Rings. And wow.
Yeah.
It is mind-blowing to me that we're even that close to the end. But the good news, of course, is there's still no end, right? We get to do all the appendices and the extra legendarium. I mean, there's a season 7 and 8, and then there's
Alan
9 and 10 and 11 and 12.
Alan, the journey doesn't end here.
That's right. The road goes ever on and on.
I'm
going to pick up exactly at the beginning of the chapter.
All right, here we go.
Sam roused himself painfully from the ground. For a moment, he wondered where he was, and then all the misery and despair returned to him. He was in the deep dark outside the undergate of the orcs' stronghold. Its brazen doors were shut. He must have fallen stunned when he hurled himself against them, but how long he had lain there, he did not know. Then he had been on fire, desperate and furious. Now he was shivering and cold. He crept to the doors and pressed his ears against them. Far within, he could hear faintly the voices of orcs clamoring. But soon they stopped or passed out of hearing, and all was still. His head ached, and his eyes saw phantom lights in the darkness. But he struggled to steady himself and think. It was clear, at any rate, that he had no hope of getting into the orc-hold by that gate. He might wait there for days before it was opened, and he could not wait. Time was desperately precious. He no longer had any doubt about his duty. He must rescue his master or perish in the attempt. Perishing is more likely. It will be a lot easier anyway, he said grimly to himself as he sheathed Sting and turned from the brazen doors. Slowly, he groped his way back in the dark along the tunnel, not daring to use the elven light. And as he went, he tried to fit together the events since Frodo and he had left the crossroads. He wondered what the time was. Somewhere between one day and the next, he supposed, but even of the days he had quite lost count. He was in a land of darkness where the days of the world seemed forgotten, and where all who entered were forgotten too. And then we're skipping the next paragraph because basically that's what we covered in the intro.
Am I wrong in perhaps saying that last portion that you read reminded me of the early pandemic?
Oh, goodness. Wow. That's where the days of the world seemed forgotten and where all who entered were forgotten too. Yeah, that's about right.
What day is it even? I'm sitting here in my house desperately worried about the world ending in March and April of 2020. Yeah. And, I'm feeling a little Hobbit-like, a little Samwise-like outside Cirith Ungol.
Seemed forgotten. Boy, you're absolutely right. I didn't know what day it was. The next thing on my list, I'll just keep trying to do this thing. Yeah.
Which is wild too, because in a way, I feel like most readers, especially ones that were reading along when these were being published, have forgotten. We haven't seen Sam since the end of book 4.
Yeah.
And then here we are, and season 6, he wakes up, he's confused, he's in pain. Why? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. Why is he confused and in pain? Good question. Let's go back to the last moments we had with him almost a year and a half ago at the end of book 4. He had just heard Shagrad and Gorbag's conversation, including the very important part about Shelob not killing her victims, rendering them unconscious. That changed everything for him.
Mm-hmm. It sure did. It sure did. He chased after the orcs, pretty much heedless of all of the danger. Quote, and with that, he raced round the last corner, only to find that by some trick of the tunnel or of the hearing which the ring gave him, he had misjudged the distance. The 2 orc figures were still some way ahead. He could see them now, black and squat against the red glare. The passage ran straight at last, up an incline, and, at the end, wide open, were great double doors, leading probably to deep chambers far below the high horn of the tower. Already The orcs with their burden had passed inside.
And then that text continued. Gorbag and Shagrat were drawing near the gate. Sam heard a burst of hoarse singing, blaring of horns and banging of gongs, a hideous clamor. Gorbag and Shagrat were already on the threshold. Sam yelled and brandished Sting, but his little voice was drowned in the tumult. No one heeded him. The great doors slammed to. Boom. The bars of iron fell into place inside. Clang. The gate was shut. Sam hurled himself against the bolted brazen plates and fell senseless to the ground. He was out in the darkness. Frodo was alive, but taken by the enemy. Oh, what a cliffhanger, huh?
I can't imagine trying to read these as they came out. It just...
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Can you think about that for 2 seconds?
At least with this one, it's book... Well, you're right. That would have been the end of book 4. You'd have to wait for the Return of the King to come out. Which was a longer gap than the gap between Fellowship and Two Towers.
Yeah.
Because he'd been working on the index and everything and trying to get all those things lined up into place.
Because Two Towers came out in November of 1954, and then October of 55, we got Return of the King. So almost a year to wait. I mean, sure, it's nothing to Game of Thrones fans. You guys are used to that.
Well, no, that's true. They measure weights in decades, yeah.
But still, it's one of those things you don't sort of appreciate once it's all out and done. Like, imagine waiting to figure out what happens.
Oh, man, that would have been just, Frodo. At least he left us with Frodo is alive, but taken by the enemy. Can you imagine? He still doesn't know if Frodo's alive or dead, right? We think he's dead.
Yeah.
And then boom, he's alive. But he already pulled that one off with Gandalf, right? We thought he was dead, and it turns out he's not. So
surprise again.
I'm back. So the contrast between that moment, right, when Sam's chasing Gorbat and Shagrat, wielding the sword, yelling out, that moment and now. Then he was on fire, desperate and furious, and now he's shivering and cold. Feels like a long time has passed.
Yeah. It's very much the, oh God, my head. Like in the movie, you wake up, it's like, oh, well, clearly some time has passed. It's dark out. Obviously, Mordor, it's always dark.
Well, especially in a tunnel underground, yeah.
Well, I mean, that too, yeah, but that goes without saying. But no, he presses his ear to the door. He remembers Gorbag and Shagrat sounding so close, but now the voices are faint and then they just stop altogether.
Yeah, even though he is theoretically still wearing the ring, he was wearing it at the moment that he get knocked out. We haven't been told that he's taken it off. He's even having a hard time thinking straight, right? And I have to say, when I hear that, he's confused, he's got a headache, and he's seeing phantom lights. Honestly, he needs to be in concussion protocol. It sounds like when he hurled himself against those gates, he suffered a concussion.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
this is no time to play around, Sam. You need to take it easy for a bit.
Saving the world from an evil demigod, maybe you push through the concussion. If this is like a football game, maybe you hold off for a little bit. But now Sam is realizing the circumstances he's in. He can't get to where Frodo is being kept prisoner through the gate because he knocked himself out. And it could be. He's
not going to open this door with his head. Yeah.
No. Well, he might try, but I don't think that's going to work because it could have been days before it's good. That door's going to open again.
Right. I mean, this is not a normal passageway that they use. I mean, this is a passageway that leads to Shelob's tunnel, to Shelob's lair directly. So that's really going to be only used in emergencies. In this case, it was a way to get Frodo safely and quickly into custody. It could be days or even weeks before it's open again. And that solidifies his decision, right? It is time to rescue Frodo or die trying. And frankly, he's convinced that the dying part is both easier and far more likely.
Yeah.
He's probably not wrong.
So now, of course, he goes back down the tunnel. Still dark in there. He's afraid to use the file in that moment. And as he does, he tries to think back to exactly what happened over the past few days since they left the crossroads, trying to refresh.
The crossroads, that was a while back. So, folks, to refresh your memory, dear listeners, that would have been March 10th. Now, that's the dawnless day, right? That's the day where everybody else wakes up and there is no dawn and there's just that pallid cloud of smoke from Mordor. So that's March 10th. Then March 11th is the day that Gollum visited Shelob. And then when he came back to Frodo and Sam, he nearly repented. That was that. Or Sam, sadly, had an influence over Gollum's final move to evil. I mean, arguably, I don't know that Gollum's repentance would have lasted anyway. And I know that's a fun conversation to have. And we'll probably talk about that when we get to Mount Doom, because like what would have happened had he repented? I think is a fascinating question to deal with.
You keep bringing up these hypotheticals.
We'll have
with
plenty
me.
of hypotheticals in this chapter. I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will, because I know that's like your specialty.
It is. I do hyperfixate on that and that exclusively.
And that exclusively. All right.
Keeping with the dates, March 12th, This is Frodo and Sam led into Shelob's lair. March 13th, Frodo gets captured. And then here we are, March 14th, talking about it in this podcast.
Exactly. So it has been a while, right? I mean, March 10th was the day at the crossroads. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is the 5th day since they've left the crossroads. And a lot has happened. Sam, though, even though it's only been 5 days, has completely and totally lost count. He feels like the darkness is causing him to forget the days of the world. And like we just read at the end of that passage, he also begins to think that he and Frodo have been forgotten.
Which is really sad when you think about it, because that's very disheartening.
That is. It's got to be.
I'm almost wondering, like, did the publisher say, hey, you know what, for anyone that maybe has forgotten or isn't rereading, maybe do like work a little refresher in there. And so, okay,
I doubt they had to tell Tolkien to do that, actually. I think,
and I was going to say, it's like, you're not ready for this. I'm going to give you the best recap you've ever had in your life.
Right.
You're going to remember everything. And then it's Sam speaking out loud, literally what happened. And they're, who's thinking about Frodo and Sam at all? What's happening to everybody else out there? Well, here's your refresher. You've got it. It's out there.
Absolutely. And of course, we did cover those moments in detail in the intro, but just as a recap, right? Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli leading the fleet up the Anduin.
And then Merry is riding with Durnhelm in the deepest part of the Druadan forest. And then Pippin is watching Denethor lose his mind, having been convinced that what he saw in the Palantir the night before, which would have been March 13th, is correct, is true, is actively happening.
Even though we're never actively told exactly what he saw in the Palantir, it definitely was enough to throw him over the edge and into complete despair.
Oh, yeah.
I think we were speculating. I think a lot of people think that he saw that Sauron had captured the ring, right? Because he captured Frodo. Mm-hmm. And it is, well, it's not possible that he would have seen those things. And there's a couple reasons why. Number one, the Palantir can't lie, no matter how much Sauron wanted them to. Mm-hmm. They cannot show a vision that isn't actually accurate. So they could not have shown him capturing the ring. And here's the interesting bit. Couldn't have shown him having captured Frodo, because even though Frodo had already been captured, Sauron didn't know this yet. The message hadn't gotten to him. So he had to show him something else, presumably just the size of the massive army. He's like, oh, you think the army outside of Minas Tirith is big? What about the one I still have in Mordor? Or what about the Black Fleet coming up? That's almost certainly what he saw, was the Black Fleet.
For sure.
And so he despaired, not realizing that's Aragorn. Those are the good guys coming to rescue us. No, he would have thought that was the Corsairs of Umbar coming to finish him off. So really, really sad stuff. But yeah, he was convinced that that was true. And here's the thing, and we talked about this at the end of the intro, the text really highlights this. They were all constantly thinking of Frodo and Sam.
Yeah. It's the equivalent of thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. That's kind, but it's not going to help him, is it?
Yeah, no. At this point, you're almost starting to wonder, God, is Faramir going to come save him at the last minute? Is he going to make the trek through Cirith Ungol? It's like, oh, that's tough. That's tough. Yeah. Thoughts, prayers, not really helping.
No,
Samwise, Hamfast's son, completely alone.
What do we make of the use of Samwise Hamfast's son here? I got to mention this because I looked this up. I thought, I don't know that we see him called that very often. There's only 2 other times that he is named as the son of Hamfast. One is when Frodo introduces him to Faramir as the son of Hamfast. Mm-hmm. And once at the end of book 4, when he bursts into Sindarin as he confronts Shelob holding the vial, having just wounded her with Sting. When he comes back into English, he says, well, and then he was Samwise Hamfast's son once again. Do you think there's any significance to it here? The fact that he's Samwise Hamfast's son?
I think the Samwise Hamfast's son, for me at least, it solidifies the fact that he is a hobbit first and foremost. It's almost like you might not understand this reference. And if you don't, I think it's going to make a great clip on TikTok.
If it would make a good clip on TikTok, the odds I probably won't recognize it. You're right.
Okay, fair enough. Does the name Sasha Fierce mean anything to you?
I'm afraid it does not. I am apparently too old for this.
No, that is okay. I will explain. So many years ago, Beyonce released an album.
Okay.
And the album is, I believe it's called I Am Sasha Fierce. And it's
I wanted to say who is Beyonce just to throw you for a loop, but I actually do know.
You can't do that. No, you're not that old.
I
You're not
know.
that old. I'll give you that. So Sasha Fierce is like this alter ego.
Does she sing with Sammy Davis? Bing?
No.
What about old Blue Eyes? No, I don't know who she is. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Not that old, like I said. All right. So Beyonce album, Sasha Fierce,
right.
digression.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So Beyonce has this album called I Am Sasha Fierce. And she comes to explain like Sasha Fierce is like an alter ego. And when she's performing, and I'm not going to.
Okay. So an alter ego.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you think about like Samwise Gamgee from book 1 is not taking on Shelob. This is the Sam this is the Sam that has grown, that has learned to be brave and fight. But every once in a while, he delves back into his, good hobbit sense, his, good tilled earth, and I'm just happy eating and drinking and being merry. And when you have those intense moments of like bravery and potential trauma and lots of stuff going on there, you almost need to retreat back into yourself to protect yourself sometimes. So I see that as, all right, we've had our adventure moment. Let's apply the good hobbit sense, figure out a way to get Frodo, you sneaky little guy.
Okay.
That's my read on it. That's
interesting. I actually don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing what our listeners say because, like I said, there's only those 2 other times.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is when Frodo calls him that as Samwise, son of Hamfast. But this Samwise Hamfast's son, the only other time is when the text, the narrative, just like it does here, calls him that after he kind of comes out of that little Cinderin that he didn't even know what he was saying and goes back to speaking English like, all right, come and get it, and he was Samwise Hamfast's son again. I think you're right, though. You're onto something, that down-to-earth sort of
indicator. It's like an indicator that he's switched between the bravery to the humble. Like not even in a bad. I say humble.
No, I know what you mean.
He is a hobbit once again.
Well, I'm sure we will discuss more stuff like this after the break. So join us in just a bit. Well, folks, soon we're going to get back to Samwise Hamfast's son. But before we do, we want to remind you there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast than just us.
The PPP has an amazing listener community, and they are always coming up with great questions, discussion, and memes across all social media space. I got to mention the memes. I have a healthy respect for them. You can check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
So on Facebook, just look for The Prancing Pony Podcast. Follow the page to get the news and new releases, but you're going to want to join the group to get in those great discussions.
And reminder, if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod. On Twitter and Instagram, we are simply at PrancingPonyPod.
And if you want daily Tolkien content, please check out Today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and on all your favorite podcast apps. It's my new short format daily show with everything from Tolkien Tuesday to Third Age Thursday. Be sure to check it out at youtube.com/@TolkienTimes and follow @TolkienTimes on all your social media. Don, would you pick us up after Sam makes it out of Shelob's tunnel?
Alan, I would be delighted. All was ominously quiet. The light was no more than that of dusk at a dark day's end. The vast vapors that arose in Mordor and went streaming westward passed low overhead. A great welter of cloud and smoke now lit again beneath with a sudden glow of red. Sam looked up towards the Orc Tower, and suddenly, from its narrow windows, lights stared out like small red eyes. He wondered if they were some signal. His fear of the orcs, forgotten for a while in his wrath and desperation, now returned. As far as he could see, there was only one possible course for him to take. He must go on and try to find the main entrance to the dreadful tower. But his knees felt weak, and he found that he was trembling, drawing his eyes down from the tower and the horns of the cleft before him. He forced his unwilling feet to obey him, and slowly, listening with all his ears, peering into the dense shadow of the rocks beside the way, he retraced his steps, past the place where Frodo fell, and still the stench of Shelob lingered, and then on and up until he stood again in the very cleft where he had put on the ring and seen Shagrat's company go by. There he halted and sat down. For a moment he could drive himself no further. He felt that if once he went beyond the crown of the pass and took one step veritably down into the land of Mordor, that step would be irrevocable. He could never come back. Without any clear purpose, he drew out the ring and put it on again. Immediately, he felt the great burden of its weight, and felt afresh, but now more strong and urgent than ever, the malice of the Eye of Mordor, searching, trying to pierce the shadows that it had made for its own defense, but which now hindered it in its unquiet and doubt.
Well, let's go back, actually, a paragraph before what you read. We're going to go back to the bit about the stone door. So he's made it back to that stone door that he encountered at the end of book 4. And just like he did then when he couldn't figure out how to open it, he actually just crawls over it instead. It's obviously not all the way to the ceiling. It's there mostly, it seems, to prevent Shelob from getting into that tunnel.
Which makes sense. He makes his way out of Shelob's tunnel. Her webs are still, blowing in the wind. No sign of her, of course, because she's either bleeding out or dead already.
No, she's bleeding out. As we'll hear later on, we'll actually hear her gurgling sounds now that he's got the ring on.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
I forgot about that part. Oh,
I know. Isn't that gross? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he makes his way out carefully, and he encounters darkness and quiet. Now, I don't know about you, Don, but when I go, let's say, camping, I love the darkness and the quiet. But this is not the nice, quiet, peaceful darkness of a night in the woods, is it?
No. This is, and as he said, an ominously quiet.
Ominously quiet, yeah.
And remember as well, it's not dark because the sun has gone down. It's dark because there are vapors and clouds and smoke blocking everything, the welter of clouds.
By the way, folks, the noun welter just means a large number of items in no order, a confused mass. So it's just like a jumble of clouds. It's not, a nice, organized, pretty cloud formation.
So it is a welter of hobbits at Bilbo's party.
A large number of items in no order, a confused mass. I love that.
A confused mass? You'd look at me and say a group of hobbits isn't just a big confused mass.
It's just a welter of hobbits. All right.
All right. So Sam looks up to the tower. He sees light like red eyes in its windows. Again, we've got this visual reminder that brings back the fear of the orcs. And he knows he has to go on and find his way into the tower. I will say, though, I think it's very telling that Sam doesn't immediately go, all right, well, I now have to destroy the ring, even if Frodo's alive. It's too important. He says, nope, Frodo's the priority.
Yeah, remember when he believed that Frodo was dead, it was one thing for him to take the ring and try to continue the mission. Mm-hmm. Even then he had a hard time, like, oh, maybe I need to stay by his body, that kind of thing. They would understand. But then he goes, and then he just absolutely beats himself up when he finds out that Frodo is still alive. Like, I never should have left my master's side. I knew it. But here's the thing. If he had not left Frodo's side at that point, he would have been killed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's
invisible or not. He's going to get accidentally, if nothing else, run over by these 80 orcs, right? So, no, he did the right thing, but I understand why he didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
He decides he's going to go back into that tower. And I love this because this is courage to me. It isn't a lack of fear. It's, I'm terrified, but I'm going to move forward despite that fear. That is bravery right there.
Yeah, there's a great quote by FDR that I was wrongly attributing to Anne Hathaway in the Princess Diaries movie.
That's a big switch.
Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear. Ooh. And that assessment, something more important, is Frodo.
It's Frodo.
FDR didn't say that part about Frodo.
I can't imagine that. No, I'm pretty sure there's nothing to fear except Frodo being, tortured by the orcs. That does not sound like anything he said.
And fear itself? Is that another? You have nothing to fear but fear itself? Is that
of course. That was absolutely. That was FDR for sure.
That was FDR. Okay. Yeah. Look at me go.
He had some good speechwriters, apparently.
He did. All right. So it takes this huge effort to sort of get over that fear, to find that courage and move forward, forcing his feet literally to walk. And he has to go back over the place he knows, which is potentially more terrifying. There's always that fear of the unknown, but like, all right, I know exactly what I'm doing here, but if anything changes, I'm screwed.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah. And you know, like you said, the amount of willpower that it takes. I mean, this is all his volition, forcing his feet to walk. He's having to consciously choose to move every step of the way. So he goes back, like you said, over the places. So he goes back to where Shelob attacked Frodo, goes back to where Sam had to make that hard decision at the end of book 4 to leave what he thought was his master's body, to take the ring and leave him behind.
Yeah, and he keeps going down that path to the point where he puts on the ring for the first time, and then he saw Shagrat and his troops, and they're all coming down the tower.
Exactly. And this is where he stops, right? He feels like if he takes that one step forward, this is the furthest from home I've ever been. If he goes over the pass into Mordor, it's a step he can't take back. It's a step he can't undo. There is no Control Z when you go into Mordor, right?
No,
you're done.
There is not.
There's no coming back.
Can I take a brief aside and just explain a part of internet culture? I don't know if you know that this exists, but it's been removed from YouTube. But there is every time Samwise Gamgee takes a step on screen, anytime Sean Astin moves his feet, we cut back to that scene. This will be the furthest from home. I once thought about doing that as like a live stream challenge to just watch it to see if I could keep my sanity. And thank God it was removed, because I don't think, looking back, I'm like, no.
You would definitely have to take a huge effort of will and force your disobedient eyes to keep watching that. Yeah.
Yeah, not fun at all. Not fun at all.
So he stops, right? He stops. I'm not going into Mordor yet. I got to prepare myself. What's he do?
Nope. He puts the ring back on. And then, quick question. We saw Sam put the ring on at the end of book 4. Was there any indication that he removed it, or the text says put it on again? So I'm imagining it fell off, or he took it off.
Well, that's the thing. See, in Hammond and Skull's Reader's Companion, which, by the way, is a resource I highly recommend everybody to pick up if you're going to read The Lord of the Rings, we learned that a reader pointed this out to Christopher Tolkien, and Christopher agreed, this does seem to be a most remarkable case of the author nodding. Sometimes it appears even the great ones slip up from time to time. So, no, there's no evidence that he took off the ring. There's nothing in the text that says he removed it. All we know is he was wearing it when he knocked his butt out on the brazen doors, and there's nothing that says he had to pick it up again. So I think he was still wearing it, and Tolkien just forgot. But can we be fair? That's totally understandable.
Yeah, that's fine. And compared to the amount of times that Tolkien changed his mind, keep in mind, there's a whole nother version of The Hobbit to retcon all of the stuff that he wanted to add in Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's mostly chapter 5, but still.
I mean, but like, it's one of those things, and maybe the ring saw this little freak out and was like, no, I'm out, and just slips off his finger. Who even knows?
But then we're never told that he picked it up again, so... It is kind of unusual.
That's true. All right. Anyway,
it is the ring. Yeah.
Back to the text. Yeah. Whether he's put it on again or he's just kept it on, he feels the burden. He feels the weight of the ring, and that we've sort of been noticing get heavier and heavier because, of course, they've been getting one step closer to Mordor.
That's right. Not to mention, by the way, the malice of the Eye of Mordor. What a phrase that is. The malice of the Eye of Mordor, as Sauron continues to search for the ring.
I also love pointing this out because so many people try and make Peter Jackson comparisons. The E and I and the M in Mordor are both capitalized.
Yes.
So it is very much a proper noun. Now, whether or not it is a giant eye atop Barad-dûr is a question for another day, but I love that idea of like, you've seen Monsters, Inc., right?
Oh, yeah.
It's the I'm watching you, Wazowski.
I'm watching you, Wazowski. Always watching.
The equivalent is I'm watching you, Hamfast, son.
That's right.
Or Gamgee.
That would be perfect. No, I'm sorry. Sauron should have the voice of Roz. I'm watching you, Hamfast, son. You forgot your paperwork again, Witch King.
Oh, that darn paperwork. Wouldn't it be easier if it all just blew away? Anyway, we should probably get back to the podcast.
We probably should. So the malice of the Eye of Mordor, Sauron's looking for the ring. I mean, he's searching diligently, but...
Yeah, we get another glimpse of things as Sauron basically notices and thought it would be good for his like exterior decorating. his landscaping. He thought, oh, this is a great idea. But no, it's actually now working to his disadvantage, which I think is a theme of Sauron's, thinking that things are going to go one way and then having it be his downfall. Because in his mind, there's no one powerful enough to throw the ring into the fire.
There's nobody powerful enough to come into Mordor to try it. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. The shadow that has been serving Sauron as like this defense, this bulwark, also makes it harder for him to search, which just leads to more increased doubt. Because remember, there's a certain gentleman that is maybe looking into a Palantir within the next little bit and saying like, hey, buddy, you ready for me? And it's Aragorn. And now that doubt is...
That will have actually happened a few days before, actually. Because at this point, Aragorn's on the Anduin, floating up with the Black Fleet. And he looked into the Palantir before he even left for the Paths of the Dead.
That's right. I almost wonder, would Sauron have even believed the messengers that there's 2 hobbits here just hanging out? Like, there's no ring with them. It's just the hobbits. Like, we didn't find any ring.
Well, they never found the second one, right? Remember, they think it was one hobbit and then an elf warrior.
That's right. Right.
Yeah. And of course, they don't have the ring. They don't capture the ring. They only capture the mithril coat.
No, they do not.
You know, this thing about stuff that Sauron uses for his defense or even for his offense in some cases end up serving his opponent. It reminds me, there's a line that Éomer says in the Ride of the Rohirrim chapter. He says, our enemy's devices oft serve us in his despite. The accursed darkness itself has been a cloak to us. And now, lusting to destroy Gondor and throw it down stone from stone, his orcs have taken away my greatest fear. The outwall could have been held long against us. Now we can sweep through if once we win so far. So just in that one little bit, Éomer's telling us not only did Sauron's darkness prove to be an advantage for the good guys, but Sauron's strategic error in dismantling the outwall in part of the siege was itself another error, because they could have turned around and used that to hold defensively against a counter-sieging force, which they had to imagine would come.
Oh, for sure.
But I also think they had to think they would have more warning, because they had an army parked on that road from Anorion that the Rohirrim avoided by connecting with Khan Bari-Khan and the Wozes, the Druidon. Yeah.
Love those. And it really just goes to show you sometimes what you think is going to help you, especially when your intent is evil.
Oh, yes.
Up being your downfall.
Shall prove but mine instrument, as Iluvatar might say.
Ooh, look at that. We got a Spabini.
Yeah,
First one of book 6. All right, back to the malice of the Eye of Mordor. We will see Frodo especially experience this thing a lot in the chapters to come.
We certainly will. So I'm going to pick up after that as Sam decides to go ahead and move. Sam shuddered and tried to force himself to move. There was plainly some devilry going on. Perhaps in spite of all orders, the cruelty of the orcs had mastered them, and they were tormenting Frodo, or even savagely hacking him to pieces. He listened, and as he did so, a gleam of hope came to him. There could not be much doubt. There was fighting in the tower. The orcs must be at war among themselves. Shagrat and Gorbag had come to blows. Faint as was the hope that his guest brought him, it was enough to rouse him. There might be just a chance. His love for Frodo rose above all other thoughts, and, forgetting his peril, he cried aloud, I'm coming, Mr. Frodo! I love that. He ran forward to the climbing path and over it. At once, the road turned left and plunged steeply down. Sam had crossed into Mordor. He took off the ring, moved, it may be, by some deep premonition of danger. Though to himself he thought only that he wished to see more clearly. Better have a look at the worst, he muttered. No good blundering about in a fog. Hard and cruel and bitter was the land that met his gaze. Before his feet, the highest ridge of the Efelduath fell steeply in great cliffs down into a dark trough, on the further side of which there rose another ridge, much lower, its edge notched and jagged with crags like fangs that stood out black against the red light behind them. It was the grim Morgai, the inner ring of the fences of the land. Far beyond it, but almost straight ahead, across a wide lake of darkness dotted with tiny fires, there was a great burning glow. And from it rose in huge columns a swirling smoke, dusty red at the roots, black above where it merged into the billowing canopy, that roofed in all the accursed land. Sam was looking at Oradruin, the mountain of fire. Ever and anon, the furnaces far below its ashen cone would grow hot, and with a great surging and throbbing, pour forth rivers of molten rock from chasms in its sides. Some would flow blazing towards Barad-dûr down great channels. Some would wind their way into the stony plain, until they cooled and lay like twisted dragon shapes, vomited from the tormented earth. In such an hour of labor, Sam beheld Mount Doom, and the light of it, cut off by the high screen of the Ephel-Duath from those who climbed up the path from the west, now glared against the stark rock faces, so that they seemed to be drenched with blood.
Ooh.
Wow. I've got some things to say that didn't even make it in my notes, because I have to say this happens so often where you're looking at the things you're going to read, like, okay, I want to read this part, I want to read this part.
Mm-hmm.
But until you read it out loud, you don't catch some of the details.
Mm-hmm.
Listen again to some of these, which there rose another ridge, darkness dotted with tiny fires, great burning glow, swirling smoke, dusty red at the roots, black above, billowing canopy. Listen to all that alliteration. It is so musical. As you read it, the rhythm just flows, and it's so much more powerful than if he didn't use all those alliterations. Blazing towards Barad-dûr. I mean, they're everywhere through there. It's fantastic. The furnace is far below. I mean,
it's so good. It's so good. But I'm actually kind of, now that you're pointing that out, I'm reminded of the way that Tolkien writes and how alliteration has kind of been his go-to for a lot of this. It surprises me how many alliterations he's used for Mordor, because he's previously used a lot of that alliteration in more peaceful lands or kingdoms, or like babbling brooks or running rivers or something akin to like nature and happiness. But this is very much like dark and evil alliteration.
Yeah, it is.
Evil alliteration itself.
Evil alliteration. There we go.
Does that work?
Not really, because it's E and but I'll let you have it.
It's a vowel sound thing. Anyway. So, sorry, back to the actual text that we are focusing on, even though this burden is increased with Sam, along with the sense of the malice, yet again, of the Eye of Mordor.
Right.
Sam also gets the benefit of increased hearing and decreased vision. So while he can barely see the rock walls around him, he could hear Shelob.
Yeah.
He could hear the clash of metal. He could hear the orcs just fighting each other.
In fact, and this is all still in that paragraph that we skipped, his hearing is so sensitive that he actually thinks a whole other company of orcs is on their way. But then he realizes, no, those orc cries are coming all the way from that tower.
It's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
A little bit. Because keep in mind, he moves again, and he knows that something is going to happen, right? And of course, his mind is going 100 miles an hour. They're torturing Frodo. They're cutting him up to bits.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I mean, Sam is definitely thinking worst case scenario there. But then he realizes with a degree of certainty, which gives him some hope, that the orcs, as they so often do, are fighting amongst themselves. And that hope, that little bit of hope that knowledge gives him the strength to go forward, again, driven by his love for Frodo.
You want to talk love for Frodo? He shouts out, "I'm coming, Mr. Frodo. I'm going to get there," despite literally all of the danger.
Announcing your presence here is probably not on the list of wisest things to do. Sam.
No, and yet he does so anyway. He gets to the path, and he climbs it, and he's following the road, and he's crossing into Mordor. He takes off the ring.
Smart guy. Smart guy.
Smart hobbit. Excuse you, smart hobbit.
That's right.
Yeah. The narration basically telling us it might be because he senses danger of keeping it on. So maybe that sort of sixth sense.
From Sam's perspective, though, it's just so he can see better, because when he is wearing the ring, everything's sort of foggy. Yeah.
Yeah. And now you get to kind of look out into the land. It's not only does it have alliteration, it has really good adjectives.
Oh, it sure does.
It's hard, it's cruel, it's bitter. We get the Ephel-Duath, which is the fence of shadow, translated to mountains of shadow. And it's falling down into steep cliffs and then harsh ridges. And then you get all of these landscape descriptors that are
Nothing feels comfortable. Nothing feels soft, right?
No.
Yeah, this is a very unpleasant place. That inner ridge, by the way, the one that's much lower down, it's called the Morgai. Now, in the unfinished index, Tolkien says this means black fence. Well, I'm going to give you actually a quote. He says, black fence, an inner ridge much lower than the Ephel Duath and separated from it by a deep trough, shallower at either end, the inner ring of the fences of Mordor. Well, here's the thing. The Mor in Morgai is pretty well understood. It means dark or black. It's the same thing we get in Morgoth, Mordor, and even Morrowind. The Gai part appears to come from Kai, C-A-I, which itself comes from Kyle with an L at the end. That means pointed fence. But here's the thing. However it got its name, it is an ugly and nasty place. And Frodo and Sam are going to soon get much better acquainted with that valley between the Ephel Duath and the Morgai.
Oh, it's going to be some fun times. We're going to go past that inner fence, and then Sam sees sort of what the text describes as a wide lake of darkness dotted with many fires. And those, of course, are the orc camps on the plains of Mordor. And I would like to, again, as I so often do, posit that this is pulling right from his World War I experiences, right? You look out into no man's land and there's maybe a couple of lights, maybe a couple of fires, but other than that, it is just a wide lake of darkness.
Yeah, that's a good point. But something you wouldn't have seen in World War I, the burning glow, the swirling smoke in columns, the billowing canopy red at the roots. This is Orodruin, Mount Doom, Amon Amarth. Now, we're going to talk through a little bit about this mountain. Very, very brief sidebar. Orodruin, its original Sindarin name, means mountain of red flame, according to the nomenclature. But it is listed in Appendix F, the on translation part, as meaning burning mountain. The elements appear to be Orad, which means mountain. Now, you might not recognize Orad because we don't usually see it in its singular form, because we don't usually see a singular mountain. We see ranges. The plural of Orad is Ered, Ered Wethrin, Ered Lindon, and so on. So we know it's plural very well. And then there's Ruin, which may mean fiery red. That one is a little bit more up in the air.
Look at you giving out grammar lessons.
Well,
all right.
If I can't have Sean here doing his word nerdery, I'm gonna carry that torch. I'm gonna make him proud.
You can't carry it for him, but you can carry.
Actually, no, I can't carry Sean.
Yeah, no.
Any more than he can carry me. No.
Jeez. I would love to. Actually, no, you're very injured. Please don't try. Anyway.
Yeah, my collarbone can't take that. Maybe fireman's
please.
carry on my right shoulder, maybe.
Oh, dear God. Let's not try. All right. You are not Samwise Gamgee. and just again, as a reminder to folks, Mount Doom, because I don't know how often you get this question, Alan.
Yeah.
I get the question, why did Tolkien, he's got so many languages and birds and
why
words
did he call
for
it
the
Mount
birds.
Doom? That's a little on the nose. All right, well,
Mount Doom is simply the common speech translation of Amon Amarth. Yeah. And Amon, we've seen before, means hill, Amon Hen, Amon Sul.
Right.
Amarth, meaning fate or doom. That is from the appendix in the Silmarillion in Elements in Quenya and Sindarin names. Riveting stuff, by the way. Just, if you really want just like 200 pages of grammar lessons,
go for it. So we see the Quenya version of Amarth. So Amarth is Sindarin, but we see the Quenya version of Amarth. It's called Ambar. And we see that in Turin's name, Turambar, meaning master of doom. So you are familiar with that element, even if you don't know it. Now, back to the mountain itself. Nothing in the text gives us an exact height, but Karen Wynne Fodstad in her Atlas of Middle-earth does give us a few thoughts, and I think they're really worth considering. She says that Mount Doom was evidently a composite or stratovolcano formed of alternating layers of ash and lava. Its summit was too high for it to have been a simple cinder cone. Still, its 4,500-foot elevation was not remarkably high.
I just want to quick pause for a second, because it occurs to me now that if the professor were here with us today, yes, of course, I thought exactly of that. I researched, I talked to a... Actually,
you probably said, well, no, I thought it was going to be 5,000 feet high, but all right, fine, very, very well. I'm sure, you would have had some quibble, but it would have been close.
Sure. She goes on to compare it to Mount Etna, which is 11,000 feet high.
Yeah, more than double that, right?
With a base of nearly 30 miles in diameter.
That's a huge base, yeah.
That's a huge base.
And that's why Mount Doom can't be that big. There's not enough space for the base of it if it were to be that tall.
Yeah, exactly. She illustrates it with a 7-mile diameter base, saying that it makes, quote, its average slope a very typical 20 degrees.
Okay, that seems reasonable to me. Because if we were to make it steeper, then Frodo, first of all, it would be maybe even too steep to support its own weight. I mean, mountains can't be, well, like the stone ones can't, granite ones, but a volcano can't be. It would just collapse under its own weight. So, okay, 4,500 foot, maybe it's 5,000, maybe it's 4,000, whatever. It's not an 11,000 foot volcano like Mount Etna. This isn't Mount Fuji in the middle of Mordor. This is a single volcano, a composite or stratovolcano rather than a cinder cone. So it is bigger than that. Very interesting stuff. There's a lot more in there that does explain how she got to those conclusions. We will revisit Fonstad's Atlas when we get to the Cracks of Doom in a couple of chapters' time. But if you have access to that book, do take a look. Definitely worth your time on that. Now, back to the text of this book, the one that doesn't say how tall it is. We read that this volcano is most definitely active. Rivers of lava would be pouring out from its sides, some of which are flowing towards Barad-dûr, others towards the plain. And the light of the volcano makes the rock faces that Sam is seeing when he turns around and looks back appear to be covered in blood. Oh, this is great stuff. Ugh.
Oh, yeah.
Creepy beyond creepy. And it is exactly at that point where I'm going to have you pick up In That Dreadful Light.
Let's do it. In that dreadful light, Sam stood aghast, for now, looking to his left, he could see the Tower of Cirith Ungol in all its strength. The horn that he had seen from the other side was only its topmost turret. Its eastern face stood up in 3 great tiers from a shelf in the mountain wall far below. Its back was to a great cliff behind, from which it jutted out in pointed bastions, one above the other, diminishing as they rose, with sheer sides of cunning masonry that looked northeast and southeast. About the lowest tier, 200 feet below where Sam now stood, there was a battlemented wall enclosing a narrow court. Its gate, upon the near southeastern side, opened on a broad road, the outer parapet of which ran upon the brink of a precipice until it turned southward and went winding down into the darkness to join the road that came over the Morgul Pass. Then on it went through the jagged rift in the Morgai out into the valley of Gorgoroth and away to Barad-dûr. The narrow upper way in which Sam stood leapt swiftly down by stair and steep path to meet the main road under the frowning walls close to the tower gate. As he gazed at it, suddenly Sam understood, almost with a shock, that this stronghold had been built not to keep enemies out of Mordor, but to keep them in. It was indeed one of the works of Gondor long ago, an eastern outpost of the defense of Ithilien, made when, after the last alliance, men of Westerness kept watch on the evil land of Sauron, where his creatures still lurked. But as with Narhost and Karhost, the towers of the teeth, so here too the vigilance had failed, and treachery had yielded up the tower to the Lord of the Ringwraiths, and now, for long years, it had been held by evil things. Since his return to Mordor, Sauron had found it useful, for he had few servants, but many slaves of fear, and still its chief purpose, as of old, was to prevent escape from Mordor. Though if an enemy were so rash as to try to enter the land secretly, then it was also a last unsleeping guard against any that might pass the vigilance of Morgul and of Shelob. Only too clearly Sam saw how hopeless it would be for him to creep down under those many-eyed walls and pass the watchful gate. And even if he did so, he could not go far on the guarded road beyond. Not even the black shadow, lying deep where the red glow could not reach, would shield him long from the night-eyed orcs. But desperate as the road might be, his task was now far worse. Not to avoid the gate and escape, but to enter it alone.
Dum, dum, dum. Sorry, I gotta enter a little bit of lightness here, right? This is getting dark stuff. This is almost like the whole Turin story where we have to just make jokes to keep it like palatable because this is so brutal. This is rough. So now that Sam is fully in Mordor and has a little bit of light to see by, he gets a more complete view of the Tower of Cirith Ungol, and let's just say it's not much of an encouragement. What they'd seen from the opposite side of the pass was simply the very top turret, and now it is clear just what a big fortress this is.
Yeah, so there are 3 levels that stick out from the cliff. Each level is smaller than the one below it, and the walls are facing northeast and southeast so that there would be sharp points looking directly east. The bottom level, which now is 200 feet below Sam, is surrounded by a wall with battlements on the top surrounding a small court.
Now, here's the thing. The gate to that court, which itself looks to the southeast, is connected to a road. That road runs right on the edge of a cliff. Now, Sam kind of follows that road with his eyes, and he sees it continue past the tower. Then it turns south and down into the Morgai and out into the valley of Gorgoroth, all the way towards Barad-dûr itself.
Terrifying stuff. But of course, Sam's not on that road. He's on the much smaller road way above where it goes down and connects to the main road near the gate going to the tower.
Yeah, which, again, is not a place he wants to go, but it's where he's going to have to go. And folks, again, please check out Fonstad's Atlas for some really helpful illustrations of this tower.
Yeah, Hammond and Skull have something to add to this as well, reminding us that originally, Tolkien had drawn the tower in 4 tiers. He drew it that way. The drawing is in the Hammond and Skull's book, Artist and Illustrator, as figure 174, if you want to go look that up.
He later on changed it to 3, and as he did, he gave specific measurements. These are all in the History of Middle-earth. They jutted out 40 yards, 30 yards, and 20 yards from the cliff. So each level was 10 yards or 30 feet shallower than the one below it. Interestingly, their heights are given in feet. So the first level is 100 feet high, and the second level is 75 feet high, and then the third level is 50 feet high, just to get to the base of the turret. Now, that is a big tower, folks. That's 225 total feet in height, just to the base of the turret. That's the equivalent of a 21-story tall office building.
Oh, my God.
It's huge. And honestly, you don't want to work at this office building, though, by the way. The HR department is terrible. You really don't want to work here. Parking is just such a bear. There's like 4 spots. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
No place to eat nearby, but don't bring your sack lunch because people will just steal it. Yeah.
Also, there's this crazy old lady that sometimes turns into a spider sometimes and just eats a bunch of us.
She might eat your colleagues one day. Heck, she might eat you. You never know.
Be careful. I mean, you can file a complaint, but honestly, I don't think
that's what I'm saying. The HR department just puts it in the round file. Anyway.
All right. We have this moment that is so poignant because it hits Sam. Sam realizes the east-facing design of this fortress means, it was not meant to keep people out. You're trying to keep me in. You're trying to keep people in.
That's absolutely right. Now, the thing is, the text explains there was a good reason for this. It was originally a work of Gondor, just like Minas Morgul was before it became Minas Ithil. It was built early in the Third Age after Sauron's defeat at the hands of the Last Alliance, because even though Sauron had been defeated, many of his creatures, many of his servants still lived in Mordor. But anyone else remember the other defenses that Gondor built around that same time? Ah, yes, the Towers of the Teeth, Narchost and Carchost, which mean, by the way, Bitter Biting Fort and Fang Fort.
Wow. Really kind of going all in with those teeth.
Yeah. Well, Carchost, right? Remember Carcharoth, Red Fang, right?
Oh, yes. The wolf from the Silmarillion. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's the thing, right, though. Treachery has yielded up the tower to the Lord of the Ringwraiths. Treachery. Yeah, it wasn't an assault. They didn't attack it the way like the Witch King took Minas Ithil, turned it into Minas Morgul. This was an inside job that resulted in a very, very important, very strategic fortress falling to the Witch King.
That's right. Now that takes me back, this idea of treachery, to the Council of Elrond, where Gandalf once said, "In all the long wars with the Dark Tower, treason has ever been our greatest foe." Now at the time, Sean and I wondered, what in the world is Gandalf talking about, right? We don't have any descriptions of, treason, treachery. Who would betray the good guys? But here's the thing. Here's an example. Apparently somebody did. We don't know the story. We don't need to know the story, but we do know that it happened.
Yeah. And so now it's been in the hands of evil for so long.
Yeah.
Do we know how long? Let's, you want to take a look at that timeline there, Alex?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We're not told exactly, but we can really use our brains to kind of figure it out. So in the appendices, we read in the entry for King Telemnar. Now, he reigned for only 2 years, 1634 to 1636 in the Third Age. that thanks to the deadly plague that came to Gondor, lots of people, including the king and his children, died. And then we read, for weariness and few of men, the watch on the borders of Mordor ceased, and the fortresses that guarded the passes were unmanned. So part of me, okay, this might be when it happened, but no. That can't be when it fell to the Witch King, because when we look at the Tale of Years in Appendix B, the Witch King didn't come to Mordor until Third Age 1980, more than 300 years after that.
Also, keep in mind in the appendices entry, this is for King Eärnil II. We learned that the Nazgul came from Mordor through the pass of Cirith Ungol in order to lay the siege to Minas Ithil.
That's right.
That was in TA 2000.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So while Minas Ithil was still Minas Ithil, it does kind of seem, I would say, highly unlikely that Gondor would not have kept a garrison at the Tower of Cirith Ungol. Combine this with, the treachery. It seems like it most likely just fell into the Witch King, into his hands right up until TA 2000 when Minas Ithil was taken.
Yeah, I would imagine maybe he, treachery enabled him to take that tower before he even attacked Minas Ithil. So somewhere right before or during that same time frame when he was taking Minas Ithil in Third Age 2000. So how long ago was that? A little over 1,000 years, because remember, we're in Third Age 3019 at this point. So it's been under his control for a long, long time, and Sauron has found this place pretty handy for keeping people in Mordor, just like it did before. I don't know, maybe as an Airbnb too, who knows?
You talk about a bad HR department. That's a terrible Airbnb.
Seriously. I mean, goodness, even the tower. Great views. No. Plus, the only way in the room is through a ladder and a hole in the floor.
Yeah, hi, I was looking for a door frame. No, sorry, you got to go up the trap door.
Yeah.
Is there like a cleaning? Like it's filthy in here. There's orc blood everywhere. Also, you didn't tell me about the volcano. What?
Yeah, but you have a great view of the volcano. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. You can just picture the heat and the smoke
and the smell of sulfur in the air. And
that's not a scenic view. I rate you 1 star.
Yeah,
one
definitely.
star. Getting back to it, while its purpose may have been to keep people in, Sauron also knew it would serve as a defense against anyone. I mean, let's call it what it is, stupid enough to try and get into Mordor as well.
Yeah, exactly. That is anybody who had already made it past both Minas Morgul and Shelob. Yeah.
And Sam sees how it's basically like, oh, this is basically impossible. Oh, no.
Yeah. To try to get past the orcs, it's just not going to happen, let alone further down the road towards Radruin, especially given orcs' night vision. Remember, we know that orcs do see better in the dark. So he's not going to be able to just hide his way down there.
He's really not. And it's as impossible, though, as it is, he's got to do something. And I think this is his best bet. He has to do something more impossible, though, because the alternative is for sure not going to work. But at the very least, I think Sam's mind is, all right, well, I'm at least going to attempt something more impossible. But in doing so, I'll feel better about myself because I'm going to go rescue Frodo.
Even if he's going to die. And like we said earlier, the perishing is more likely and also easier. Yeah. But I'm going to go ahead and pick up there with one of my favorite passages in this whole section of the book.
Let's do it.
Samwise the Strong. His thought turned to the ring, but there was no comfort there, only dread and danger. No sooner had he come in sight of Mount Doom, burning far away, than he was aware of a change in his burden. As it drew near the great furnaces, where in the deeps of time it had been shaped and forged, the ring's power grew, and it became more fell, untamable save by some mighty will. As Sam stood there, even though the ring was not on him, but hanging by its chain about his neck, he felt himself enlarged, as if he were robed in a huge, distorted shadow of himself. A vast and ominous threat halted upon the walls of Mordor. He felt that he had from now on only 2 choices: to forbear the ring, though it would torment him, or to claim it and challenge the power that sat in its dark hold beyond the Valley of Shadows. Already the ring tempted him, gnawing at his will and reason. Wild fantasies arose in his mind, and he saw Samwise the Strong, hero of the age, striding with a flaming sword across the darkened land, and armies flocking to his call as he marched to the overthrow of Barad-dûr And then all the clouds rolled away, and the white sun shone, and at his command, the Vale of Gorgoroth became a garden of flowers and trees and brought forth fruit. He had only to put on the ring and claim it for his own, and all this could be. In that hour of trial, it was the love of his master that helped most to hold him firm. But also deep down in him lived, still unconquered, his plain hobbit sense. He knew in the core of his heart that he was not large enough to bear such a burden, even if such visions were not a mere cheat to betray him. The one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due, not a garden swollen to a realm. His own hands to use, not the hands of others to command. And anyway, all these notions are only a trick, he said to himself. He'd spot me and cow me before I could so much as shout out. He'd spot me pretty quick if I put the ring on now in Mordor. Well, all I can say is things look as hopeless as a frost in spring. Just when being invisible would be really useful, I can't use the ring. And if ever I get any further, it's going to be nothing but a drag and a burden every step. So what's to be done? And I'll stop there. What is to be done?
What is to be done? I'm often reminded how much influence Tolkien had on Dungeons and Dragons. As you read that,
yeah.
I was reminded of things that, like, when your dungeon master gives you a really cool item and then you abuse that item, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, I've created a rule that's like, you can't use the thing that's been super helpful anymore.
Yeah, you can only use it once every 2 months, and you've already used it.
Okay.
For 10 years worth. Goodbye.
Oh, and Sam sees this ridiculous notion, this impossible task before him. He's considering the ring, and it not only does it not provide him comfort, he is also very aware of how dangerous this thing is.
Far more than
part.
before, right? I mean, now that he's able to see Mount Doom visibly, it has made the burden different. I mean, the ring's power, now that it is in the presence of the place of its forging, the ring's power has grown. And Sam's not an idiot. I mean, he may be simple-minded in many ways, but he is aware that it would take far more will than he has to handle the ring.
I'm often reminded again of the writing of the movie. You cannot wield it. None of us can. And I think Sam is probably the most unable to wield it. Like, he is just, he's not doing it.
Of all the 9 members of the company that left, he's the last one who should be handling the ring.
For sure. For sure. So now Sam begins to sort of feel that power and influence of the ring directly.
Yeah.
And he's not even wearing it.
Exactly. No, it's just on the chain around his neck, but he's beginning to feel its power. Just like Frodo did when he, and will, right? He's going to feel it significantly once he gets rescued. Sam's feeling like he's bigger than life, almost like he's a big target now, right? He's wearing this huge shadow of some kind, and he's just grown and grown into this monstrous size, a threat to Mordor itself. Yeah,
like the bat symbol, but for Samwise Gamgee. It's like, hi, I'm here now.
Yeah, so the last thing he wants is to draw attention.
Yeah. So he's got 2 options. You can give up the ring, which of course would be horrible. Don't do that. Or claim it for himself and challenge Sauron, which
also terrible. Don't do that.
Yeah, also terrible. Don't do that. But those are basically, he sees those as his only 2 options.
Certainly the ring is trying to tell him those are your 2 choices. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's when we get this vision that, I love this vision, right? Samwise the Strong, hero of the age. He's got this flaming sword. He's drawing armies to him, and he's leading them in this battle to overthrow the Tower of Sauron, to overthrow Barad-dûr itself.
Terrifying. I'm imagining, we mentioned flaming swords at the beginning of this episode, and I'm now reminded, I kind of want artwork of Samwise Gamgee carrying a flaming sword.
All of a sudden, I'm thinking of Good Omens. Didn't you have a flaming sword?
Yeah. I gave it away.
They were expecting, and it's so terrible out there.
Oh my goodness.
Man.
And this is perhaps one of my favorite parts of the book because it is so quintessentially Tolkien and also exactly what the ring would do after reading Sam's mind. After the defeat of Sauron, the vision suggests the clouds would disappear and Gorgoroth becomes this fruitful garden, this lush, beautiful place.
Oh man, which of course for Sam, that is the temptation, to have this huge garden because that's what he loves. And all he needs to do is claim the ring as his, and this could all be yours.
That's all you got to do.
This could all be yours if the price is right.
Oh my God.
Come on down, Samwise Gamgee. Of course, here's the thing though. That's when we get one of the most powerful statements, the most singular powerful statement about Sam's devotion to Frodo. What is the biggest help? It's not the only source of help in this, but the biggest source of help in standing against the temptation of the ring is Sam's love for Frodo.
Love that. On top of that is plain Hobbit sense.
Yeah, and I think that maybe makes me think of that Samwise Hamfast son that you talked about earlier, sort of being the reminder of who he is at his very nature. Yeah.
Same vibe, same sort of vibes. Absolutely. Because I think it's very evident to us, the reader, but also to him as well, deep down, there's no way he does that. There's no way he does that, even if it were actually like true. Even if it were possible. No.
Yeah, this is beyond him, right? Even if this weren't all just a trick, and he knows it is, and he does end up coming to that conclusion. But here's the thing. Even if it weren't a trick, even if this could actually be true, his humility is what seals the victory here. I don't want all of that. I just want one small garden. That's all his need and do, not a garden that's a realm. And I really love this because here's the deal. What do we see? It's love, loyalty, and humility that at the end of the day are the traits that enable Sam to defeat the temptation of the ring. These are traits that are absolutely inherent to him. He is filled with love, which also gives him the deep loyalty that he feels towards Frodo. And then this humility, this recognition that these things are beyond him. But it's those three traits that help him to defeat the temptation of the ring. And before we go on, I kind of want to linger there and talk about those traits in other mortals who have resisted. And I'm thinking specifically of Aragorn and Faramir, because those same traits in my mind are linked directly to them as well.
Yeah.
Especially when you compare them to those who didn't succeed, like Boromir and arguably Denethor, who never faced the ring directly, but who clearly would have succumbed.
Yeah.
Had he seen it. Yeah.
Right. We talk about love, loyalty, humility. They fit in so well with the themes we talked about last episode. You know, that idea of fellowship, that idea of staying true to one another. It's all sort of encompassed in this. It comes down to fellowship. Fellowship is love. Fellowship is loyalty. And in a way, it is kind of humility.
It certainly requires a humility. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're not greater than the others. Yeah.
Exactly. And that was, I think, the most important part is that Boromir saw himself as not necessarily better, but maybe more deserving, right?
Certainly,
it should be.
You know, I would even argue that it wasn't so much that Boromir saw himself as more deserving. He saw Gondor as more deserving. Remember?
Yes.
He sort of had this vision of the importance of Gondor and how the rest of you know, lowly people would not survive were it not for Gondor's sacrifice and Gondor's honor and Gondor's courage. And he placed Gondor so high above everything else that he wasn't able to be humble. It's tough because, of course, then we see his love and his loyalty and his humility in his redemption arc, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Boromir is Faramir at his core. He just was faced with the ring and failed, whereas Faramir was faced with the ring and succeeded. It's so hard because Boromir does show those things, the love that he shows to Merry and Pippin in sacrificing his life to try to protect them, the loyalty that he shows to Aragorn by obeying and trying to go and rescue those two hobbits, and the humility that it took to acknowledge to Aragorn, I tried to take the ring.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
wow.
There's a lot there. And let's keep it in the family then.
Yeah.
Look at Denethor. Denethor's love. Well, one, the son that he loved is gone.
Right.
The wife that he loved is gone. And the one kid that is his kid, he does not love.
Not so much. Yeah.
No. And think about loyalty. Abandon your posts. Flee for your lives. Get out of here. We're not sticking together.
He's abandoned his own responsibility. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, what did we even elect you for? Oh, you don't do elections.
That's
All
right.
Cool.
That's right. The steward's not elected. It's hereditary office. Yeah, that's right.
And then humility. I'm going to take you back to the Council of Elrond, where Gandalf is telling the story about visiting Denethor.
Oh, yeah.
And Denethor is very much like, me, master of lore, who is wisest. Like, he thinks very highly of himself in touting to Gandalf, I'm very smart. You're not going to find anything I haven't already found, because right now, to me, what was is not as important as what is, or something along those lines. But like, this is my thought, this is my idea, and I'm right because I'm the smartest guy in Minas Tirith. Who are you?
Always the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
He has also been looking into the Palantir, and so he thinks that he possesses knowledge that others don't have. Gandalf says that often Saruman had been the guest of the lords of the city. Less welcome did the Lord Denethor show me than of old, and grudgingly he permitted me to search among his hoarded scrolls. And here's the line: if indeed you look only, as you say, for records of ancient days and the beginnings of the city, read on. For to me what was is less dark than what is to come, and that is my care. But unless you have more skill even than Saruman, you will find naught that is not well known to me, who am master of the lore of this city. So that's the thing. He was very confident, very, thought very highly of himself, as you said, totally lacked humility. I mean, look at the way he interacted with Gandalf. I look at Theoden and Denethor, as we're all supposed to do, as two sides of the same coin, right? Two guys who could really have gone either way. And Theoden has the humility to listen to Gandalf and take his advice and step outside, and it changes everything, right? There is no movie exorcism, right? There is nothing like that in the books. It's his choice to come out from under the influence of Wormtongue and to then step into, arguably, the influence of Gandalf.
For sure.
Denethor, on the other hand, resists Gandalf to the bitter end, just absolutely steadfastly refuses to listen to any wisdom that Gandalf might offer. And again, that comes from pride. That comes from a misplaced sense of who you are and not recognizing. I say not recognizing where Gandalf comes from. Nobody's supposed to recognize where Gandalf comes from, right? That he's a Maya, that he's comes as one of the Astari sent by the Valar. But not recognizing his wisdom, not recognizing his own humility, right? Gandalf is not in this for the power that he can get, but Denethor thinks he is. And why? Because that's what Denethor's in it for.
There's a lot of projection. There's a lot of projection
Yeah,
happening.
There really is.
With this Denethor guy. Seriously. Yeah. Just chill out, dude.
But yeah, I mean, I think of Faramir, and it's the same traits, right? It's that love. And for him, it is really a love of Gondor, but it's a pure love.
And also the sword for its sharpness.
Right. That's the whole thing. He doesn't love the sword for its sharpness. He loves that which it defends. He loves the city of Minas Tirith. And he knows that if he were to use this weapon, he doesn't know it's the ring yet, but he says, if I alone could save her, talking about Minas Tirith, using the weapon of the Dark Lord, I would not do it. He knows that it's not, the ends don't justify the means.
They do not.
And it's also that loyalty to his people and to his men, right? To the Rangers of Ithilien themselves. And then, boy, he is humble. I mean, he's in the same position in terms of authority as Boromir was. But boy, he does strike you immediately as being far more humble.
Yeah, I am the older sibling, so I can't speak to this myself. But I feel like there is a little bit of like, sometimes in various family dynamics, sometimes younger siblings have to take that sort of, I wouldn't necessarily call it meek, but like second fiddle, second chair in the orchestra.
That makes sense, because certainly I have seen in families where there are multiple siblings, the eldest very much takes control and charge.
Yeah. Boromir does that here for sure.
I'm an only child, so I can't speak to that, too clearly. But yeah.
Younger children, please let us know in the comments sections of the various social media places that we use.
Fascinating. I love that discussion. Thank you for a really fun sidebar talking about that. I really think there's so much to be said about love, loyalty, and humility here. Really is.
Absolutely. All right. So getting back to Samwise Gamgee, the other person that has some love, loyalty, and humility, he's realizing, it was just all a trick anyway. Saruman's going to see him and he's going to just crush him like a bug instantly. And he's just going to put on the ring and get in and take over the world. And he's not wrong. That would 100% be happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, he wants to put on the ring. And especially right now, it would be really convenient if I could be invisible right about now. Not to mention the fact that as he goes on, and again, I think here he's thinking, if I'm not able to rescue Frodo, right? His job is to rescue Frodo.
Right.
If he's not able to, or if he rescues Frodo, but Frodo's too injured to go on, he's got to try to destroy the ring. So as they get closer to Mount Doom, carrying this thing is going to get harder and harder and harder.
And it's not like this changes what needs to be done, right? He knows he has to go down to the gate. He knows he has to go in and rescue Frodo, or he's going to die trying, which I think he's kind of accepted at this point.
I think he has. I think he probably expects that, but he's not going to go gently into that dark night. He's going to definitely put up a fight. He starts by, and I find this interesting, this is in the paragraph that I skipped at the very end of what we were selecting for tonight. He shrugs his shoulders. It's an interesting thing. The text says that with a shrug of his shoulders as if to shake off the shadow and dismiss the phantoms. Okay, I'm buying that because that's what Tolkien's telling me. But I also sort of see it as now's for it. I mean, I got to go.
Gotta go. There's nothing else to do but to do it. I mean, let's do it.
So he shrugs his shoulders and he starts going down the path. And in so doing, he begins to shrink back to the size of that ordinary hobbit, that small and scared, but ordinary hobbit.
Yeah. And he, of course, hears the fighting, even without the ring's auditory.
He's close enough now.
You can hear it from here. And it sounds to him as though it is coming from the courtyard that is just behind that wall.
And we're going to find that out next week. But you know what has not shrunk to the size of a small and frightened hobbit? Bartleman's bag. That's what. No, we've been on hiatus for a little while, and so we haven't jumped in. We've had a bunch of questions come in. So what has Bartleman brought us tonight, Don?
This is from Andreas S. in Sweden, writes in with a question that brings us right back to the end of last season, so a perfect time to answer this one. He asks, given the conditions given by the mouth of Sauron, what would life in Middle-earth be like 10 years after Sauron's victory? You can choose if he has the ring or not. Okay,
that last part is particularly interesting. Let's be clear. If Sauron has managed to get a hold of the ring, he would not have abided by any conditions set forth by the mouth of Sauron in those negotiations at the Black Gate. He has the ring. He dominates the entire world. Nobody stands in his way. Gandalf explains that in The Shadow of the Past. He's talking to Frodo about it. He says, the enemy still lacks one thing to give him strength and knowledge to beat down all resistance, break the last defenses, and cover all the lands in a second darkness. He lacks the one ring. So, if he has the ring, all bets are off. So I think we have to speculate based on him not having the ring, but that also means speculating that the ring hasn't yet been destroyed because we know what happens to him if it's actually destroyed.
Let's call this they get sidetracked, right? I think the 10 years after Sauron's victory, right? We're assuming that.
But Sauron wins it without the ring. So somehow, let's say that Frodo, the ring fell into the Anduin and it got lost. It really did go to the ocean. Okay. So in that set of circumstances, what happens?
I think in that circumstance, you see Gondor, Rohan, and everybody else sort of, I mean, obviously, they're gonna fight back, right? I don't see...
But can they win? Even if Sauron doesn't have the ring, he's pretty powerful.
No, I don't think so. I think this is sort of in that same idea of the long defeat. So I would say... 10 years in, let's call it, Gondor is gone. I'd say Rohan is either gone or like a fiefdom at this point. Because like I can see, and hear me out. Yeah. Let me cook for a sec. I can see Éomer being like, all right, cool. Every one of my people is going to die. I can see it going either, all right, everybody get on a horse. We're going to go charge the Black Gate, and they all die in the midst of
That's
doing
actually
so.
kind of what I would think for Rohan.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the same guy who forms a shield wall on a small little hillock on the Battle of the Pelennor Field. So, all right, that's it. We're about to die.
He's war hungry. He's war hungry, that man. I think, though, and again, let me cook on this.
Maybe they retreat into, like, small numbers of them retreat into places.
I see Éomer taking as many people as are willing to charge to their death, and I see Éowyn saying, whoa. Let's find another alternative way. I'm all for charging to death, but after my battle with the Witch King, I'm done.
Yeah, I've done my job already. I've done the thing. Yeah.
So I see Éowyn taking the women and children, leading them somewhere.
Refugees maybe up towards the Shire.
Maybe towards the Shire. Yeah, let's call it that. Let's call it Merry is like, all right, well, obviously things are bad. Let's go to the Shire. Let's go back to my place.
Let's go as far north as we can. I mean, we're only buying ourselves time.
Right. I think then also, because keep in mind, right, you had many other battles going on during the Battle of Minas Tirith. You have the ones at Erebor.
3 times Lothlorien was attacked and they rebuffed its attack.
Mirkwood.
Mm-hmm.
I think the elves hold out the longest. I think eventually Erebor is overtaken.
Yeah. Lothlorien and Rivendell hold out. Tom Bombadil holds out for 10 years. We're talking about 10 years down the line. Not 50 or 100. Yeah.
No. You know what else I think might stay or at least be a deciding factor? I feel like the Lothlorien elves team up with Fangorn.
With Fangorn? That's an interesting
With Fangorn. I think there's 10 years in.
Oh, yeah. Fangorn is still going to be a very dangerous place for Sauron's forces to go.
Yeah. I feel like the forests are maybe still there, but like everything south of Gondor is just gone, demolished. Everybody is either kept as like slaves or like servants, or however you want to sort of parse that with sort of like paying tribute to Sauron.
Well, and that's the thing I'm thinking of is tribute, right? I mean,
I
guess the thing for me is let's go back to the terms. Let's go back to what the terms were, because that's theoretically what would have happened, right? Mm-hmm. The mouth of Sauron says, the rabble of Gondor and its deluded allies shall withdraw at once beyond the Anduin, first taking oaths never again to assail Sauron the Great in arms, open or secret. Okay, so now you're swearing that you're never going to attack again. All lands east of the Anduin, so now we're talking about Ithilien, shall be Sauron's forever solely. West of the Anduin, as far as the Misty Mountains and the Gap of Rohan, so you're talking about Gondor, you're talking about part of Rohan, certainly the eastern part of Rohan, shall be tributary to Mordor. And men there shall bear no weapons, but shall have leave to govern their own affairs. But they shall help to rebuild Isengard, which they have wantonly destroyed, and that shall be Sauron's, and there his lieutenant shall dwell. Not Saruman, but one more worthy of trust. And of course, he means himself.
He means himself, yeah.
So here's the thing. Matt and I talked about these terms in episode 301 at the very end of last season. And these are really interestingly similar to some real-life historical moments. Tom Shippey points this out in Author of the Century, and he argues that French experience is glanced at also in the encounter near the end of Book 5 with the Mouth of Sauron. So Shippey goes on to say that the Mouth of Sauron presents the terms of Sauron's offer as follows, but I, meaning Tom Shippey, gloss them in the language of 20th century history. First, Gondor and its allies are to withdraw beyond the Anduin, taking oaths never again to attack. There will be a peace treaty and an armistice. Second, all lands east of the Anduin shall be Sauron's forever solely. So sovereignty over the disputed territory of Ithilien, he calls it the Alsace-Lorraine of Middle-earth, and that is to be transferred. That is a very interesting insight because that went back and forth from World War I through World War II, back and forth between France and Germany. So interesting because Ithilien has done the exact same thing.
Wow.
So
I
interesting.
Never made that connection until just now. Thank you, Tom.
He's so good at that. You know, because he talks about the outer wall, the Ramas Ekor, and he compares it to the Maginot Line. And I thought that was another very interesting point.
Yeah.
Though I will say that our own military historian, Brett Devereaux, actually disagreed with Shippey's analysis on that. In the sense that the Maginot Line was actually a lot more effective than people will give it credit for.
Okay.
Because it did actually force the Germans to go around. It didn't stop an attack from coming, but it did redirect. It wasn't the cure-all that many people were led to think that it was. But my point is that Shippey does a really good job of connecting these historical dots to some of these very interesting things in the story. So then he goes on to say about that other term, right? There's going to be an area west of Anduin which shall be tributary to Mordor, and men there shall bear no weapons, but shall have leave to govern their own affairs, but they'll help to rebuild Isengard. Shippey says, this is in effect, Shippey says, the creation of a demilitarized zone with what one can only call Vichy status, which will pay war reparations and be governed by what one can again only call a quisling. So he's talking again about the person in charge of Isengard, who really isn't looking out for the best interests of the people here in this demilitarized zone. Shippey goes on to conclude these terms represent a natural urge to salvage something out of defeat, but an urge which Tolkien's own Western world had learned by recent and bitter experience was even worse than the alternative.
Ooh.
Good stuff, Tom Shippey. So yeah, I think life in Middle-earth gets progressively worse, even if Sauron doesn't have the ring. This idea of a demilitarized zone that's ruled over by a Mordor-approved government, paying reparations, so it's keeping them in poverty, it's keeping them dependent upon Mordor, that's going to lead to just about the same conclusion that Sauron would have had, even if he did have the ring. It's going to lead, maybe not in 10 years, but not much longer, to simply his rule over the free men of Middle-earth.
Yeah, it's so weird to see how much changes and also how little it changes. Does that make sense? Just like everything is kind of going to just be the same.
But Gondor and Rohan are like a Vichy France in World War II.
Jeez.
And Éomer is leading the French resistance, of course, from somewhere up in the holds of Dunharrow. Yeah.
If this is Les Mis, Éomer is Angeros? Is it Ange? I forget the...
I don't remember. It's been ages. Ages, my friend. I won't remember any of the references except maybe some of the songs. All I know is a Vichy Rohan is a very bad idea.
Fair.
It's an interesting question. I really have to say that was a very interesting question, Andreas, so thank you for asking it.
Love that.
It's really hard to picture a situation in which the ring doesn't play a role, because either it gets destroyed and Sauron's gone, or Sauron captures it and he doesn't give a darn about the terms that the mouth had laid out. But it is interesting to think about it nonetheless. Absolutely.
That's the thing. Sauron is constantly doing I'm way stronger than you. Just come on, just give in. Or if it's not downright power, that is like the almost like, oh, hey, we're so much stronger together. Work with me here. Sure, you'll be like an indentured, but I promise it won't be that bad. And then it's worse. Bad. Yeah. And then it's so much worse.
Yeah, and the mouth of Sauron ruling over the remnants of Rohan in a Vichy government is not going to be doing anything other than keeping them under his thumb.
I don't necessarily think the mouth of Sauron gets that position. I feel like he thinks quite highly of himself, but that it goes to the Witch King.
Well, the Witch King is dead.
Well, the Witch King is dead for now, right?
That's a good point.
You cannot kill them, right? If Sauron wins, if he is the victor, the Nazgul come back. The Nazgul literally become the undead kings.
Can the Witch King come back from that? Is he... That's a very good question. I mean, I know he doesn't completely disappear until the ring that controls him is destroyed. And those 9 rings are kept in Barad-dûr. So when Barad-dûr collapses, poof, the ring wraiths are toast. They finally get their due, which is... They were mortal men, so they finally get to die and leave the circles of the world. Mm-hmm. I still wouldn't want to be them facing Iluvatar. But it's an interesting question. What happens to the Witch King? We know that his spirit, we see the spirit of a ring wraith sort of flying back to Sauron, right? Mm-hmm. Sam notices it going overhead right after that. So he does go back, but can he ever take form again? I don't know. That's a good question. If he's alive, yes, he gets it, no doubt. Yeah. If not, maybe Kamul, the Easterling, right? The kind of the next one down the ranks.
Yeah. I want to say, though, that like because of the way that Middle-earth works, the souls, the spirits, the afterlife, however you want to call it, elves go to the place called the Halls of Mandos. But for humans, their souls go only where Eru Iluvatar knows. And
they start by going to Mandos, and then they go beyond the circles of the world, only where Iluvatar knows.
I feel like the situation is if Sauron has the ring, the Witch King eventually comes back. It will probably take longer, maybe 10 years.
Just like it took Sauron a long time to take form after the ring was captured. As long as it wasn't destroyed, he could still take form.
Yeah, it's still there. It's still an option for them to be like, all right, cool. This guy's back.
I don't know, though. See, the Witch King had Minas Morgul, Minas Ithil, right? So I think either he would stay there or he would get Minas Tirith, which would be renamed something else terrible.
Oh.
Kamul, on the other hand, was frequently connected with Dol Guldur, which I think he would then have. He was the one most likely leading the 3 attacks on Lothlorien. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe it does go to the mouth of Sauron. Maybe.
Interesting.
Because you got to put a guy in Minas Ithil. You got to put a guy in Minas Morgul. Mm-hmm. You've got to put a guy in Dol Guldur.
Do you put someone like in Rohan, like at Edoras, at Helm's Deep?
I don't think so. I think you give them the illusion of self-government, but you have the guy at Orthanc. You have the guy in Isengard.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Or at the very least, you've got like a Wormtongue-esque kind of...
You definitely have those guys at every one of those places. You have one in Edoras, you have Helm's Deep if there are people there, you have one up in Dunharrow, wherever. They're everywhere, right? I mean, there's no way that the mouth of Sauron isn't corrupting as many people as he can get his hands on.
Yeah, although, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I almost wonder if the mouth of Sauron would continue to be used as like an emissary, like an ambassador. Like he's the one out on the road and wants nothing more than just to settle down. But Sauron keeps using it. It's like, all right, go
here, negotiate this.
Go negotiate with Mirkwood. Go negotiate with the Grey Havens, with everyone.
And he's not going to be able to do it for very long because he is a mortal man. I mean, yes, he's a Black Númenórean, so he is of Númenórean ancestry. He's going to live longer than most men. We speculated, I think, during that chapter that he's probably pretty close to Aragorn's age. He's been around a little while. So he's not going to live forever, right? He's a mortal man.
Okay, so maybe I'm incorrect in this. I've always sort of been under the impression that it was the unnaturally long life a la Gollum dark magic. No. He was of the race of the Black Númenóreans, and so he would have had that same extended lifespan of the Númenórean race. Maybe not as long as Aragorn. Aragorn lived a lot longer than most Númenóreans, but he would have lived a very long time, as we would have seen with the stewards of Gondor, in whom the blood of Númenor ran nearly true. If Denethor had not killed himself, he would have lived, significantly longer. Oh, interesting. Okay,
things
cool.
like that. Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for clearing that up.
No, he was definitely mortal. That horse, on the other hand, who the heck knows, man? That thing was a freak of nature. That was some terrifying demon steed. Yeah. We even speculated, we wondered if maybe it was some sort of almost like a phantom. But I mean, we don't think that was the actual answer. We don't think that was the case. But if you read the description of that horse, and I know we just did this, it feels like, for me, it was ages ago, but folks, it was just 4 episodes ago. At its head, there rode a tall and evil shape mounted upon a black horse, if horse it was, for it was huge and hideous, and its face was a frightful mask, more like a skull than a living head. And in the sockets of its eyes and in its nostrils, there burned a flame.
Oh, I forgot about the flames. Yes,
this is definitely not a real
horse,
right?
Definitely not a real horse.
Not a normal horse like the horses of the Ringwraiths. But then of the rider himself, this was no Ringwraith, but a living man. The lieutenant of the Tower of Barad-dûr he was, and his name is remembered in no tale, for he himself had forgotten it. And he said, I am the mouth of Sauron. But it is told that he was a renegade who came of the race of those that are named the Black Númenóreans, for they established their dwellings in Middle-earth during the years of Sauron's domination and worshipped him, etc. So this guy entered the service of the Dark Tower when it first rose again, and I don't, off the top of my head, remember what we're talking about there, but it wasn't when it first rose, period. So it was when it first rose again. So this is in the Third Age, just about 60 years ago, I think, at this point. And because of his cunning, he grew ever higher in the Lord's favor, and he was more cruel than any orc. So we know he was a really nasty guy, but we know he was mortal. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very, very interesting stuff. I think he gets something, but Sauron has to keep an eye on him because he's not going to live forever. Good stuff, though. Well, folks, obviously we only had time for that one question tonight, and that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But please be sure to join us again next week when Sam rings the front doorbell.
Yeah, Gorbag probably thinks it's one of those delivery postmen just being like, hi, I'm here with your death.
Yeah, who ordered death from Amazon?
Yeah, but this time it's a great elf warrior, obviously.
Of course it is.
Or it's a 3.5-foot gardener. One of the two. One of the two. As always, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP, editor Jordan Rannells, Barleyman Becca Davis, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, graphic artist Megan Collins, and website guru Phil Dean.
And please take a minute to check out the prancingponypodcast.com. That's where you'll find our show notes, our outtakes, Prancing Pony Ponderings, our online storefront where you can get PPP merch, including the all-new chapter art from Megan.
And you'll also want to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast is, after all, a podcast about the books. So if you are interested in any of the books that we've mentioned in the show, you will find a link to it in our library. We get a small amount of compensation when you make a purchase, and we do thank you for that.
Indeed, we do. We also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdan's contribution tier. I'm going to start with DeMay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, and Zaksu in Illinois.
There is also Sarah in New Jersey, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Keith in Alabama, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Anne in Kentucky, Sean in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, Christiana from Ohio, John from Japan, Olivia in London, and Jackson in Tennessee. Thank you all so much for the support.
Indeed. Thank you very, very much.
Folks, make sure you don't miss an episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcasting apps.
And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, how you'd plant a Gorgoroth-sized garden to barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. You can do that by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Please be sure to still email the question to Barleyman, though. Yeah. Even though he's been a little bit more reliable, there's still a lot of mail to sort through. We'll try to get to yours as soon as we are able.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Thank you all so much for joining us. If you'll excuse us, I need to go make sure that Alan's $6 million robotics investment will make him a good police officer. That's a RoboCop reference for all of you Gen Z people listening out here. I have been Don Marshall, the obscure Lord of the Rings fact. The cop on the screen next to me is Al. I was trying to think of something else, but you know what? It works.
That's funny. Yeah. All I've got is a 6-inch titanium plate over my left collarbone. That's it. That's the only artificial thing.
Okay, fine. So if you want to slowly start introducing yourself to the idea of becoming Cyborg from the DC universe, you can do that, Alan. In the meantime,
you know, actually, when I play Shadowrun, I always play some sort of cyborg. I usually have, all the gear. I don't do the magic stuff and I don't do the hacking stuff. I do the cyborg stuff. Shadowrun, great tabletop role-playing game if you haven't played that.
Absolutely, folks. Absolutely. But I will say before we go, folks, if Alan's voice feels slightly more digitized next weekend, may be cause for concern as he's had his vocal cords removed and replaced with...
This has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners.
Dear God, now I'm just thinking about Robot Gandalf and what that would do to the Lord of the Rings universe.
Oh, now I'm mixing my fandoms. See, I'm thinking of I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read Foundation. I was just thinking about robots and things. Yeah.
I know exactly.
Yeah, I know you know what I'm talking about.
The deep cuts keep coming today.
They do. Folks, read Foundation one of these days. I'm still convinced that if I ever had to do a whole other podcast unrelated to Tolkien, it would be a Foundation podcast. But it would be the books. And as much as I'm enjoying the TV show, it would be about the books, just like this show is about the books, even though I enjoyed the Jackson films.
Alan.
Yes.
I'm down for that.
All right. We'll be talking in a few years, my friend. All right, folks. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.